New Zealand North Island is shaking from twin earthquakes, magnitude 5.4 and 5.2, 3 minutes apart. The area of Taupo supervolcano. The Taupo supervolcano is Yellowstone's twin in the southern hemisphere. That's how huge this thing is. And these pictures that we have here, obviously, they look like Yellowstone. A lot of geysers, a lot of smoldering pools, hydrothermal areas, mineral waters, and they look like images of Yellowstone, but they're not. They're the Taupo supervolcano of New Zealand. And this is what has been shaking now. Remember, we had yesterday the 7.1 in the Kermadec Islands north of the North Island. And the same day we had a 7.3 in Sumatra, Indonesia. And Hooker Beats was right when he said that a huge earthquake would be striking that area. And we had 2 earthquakes over 7 magnitude in the same area of the Ring of Fire. So this is the North Island. That lake there you have in the middle is that's Taupo Lake over the caldera of the supervolcano. Now, this thing had a super eruption about 26,500 years ago, and it was an almost extinction level event. From what anthropologists estimated, there was only 1,000 couples left worldwide, 2,000 people to repopulate the Earth. Basically, a supervolcano erupts every 10,000 years or so. And so we're overdue for a super eruption of a supervolcano. And again, these are pictures of the Taupo supervolcano, which has shaken from both these 2 earthquakes that took place today. Let's take a look at the map and you'll see the frequency. So this is it right here. And this is information by the USGS. Yellowstone sibling in the southern hemisphere, Taupo, New Zealand. It's a supervolcano. Yellowstone is not the only large caldera system in the world. There's about 21 supervolcanoes in the whole world. They're finding more every time, every little while. Indeed, caldera systems can be found all over the planet. In New Zealand, the Taupo caldera system shares many similarities with Yellowstone, a history of large eruptions, geysers, hot springs, and even earthquake swarms, and ground deformation, some of which might be related to magmatic intrusions, obviously. Okay, Taupo, located in the center of New Zealand's island, right there, you can see it, is short for Taupo Nui a Tia, which means the great clock of Tia. In Maori tradition, the early explorers and chief Tia observed some cliffs along the shores of Lake Taupo that resembled his coat, resulting in the name of the area. So, like Yellowstone, Taupo is extremely repeated large explosive eruptions interspersed with smaller eruptions of ash and lava. At Yellowstone, volcanic activity is driven by a hotspot, a region of melting within the Earth that is stationary relative to the tectonic plates that make up the crust. In contrast, Taupo's volcanic activity is fed by the subduction of one plate beneath the other, which generates melt. Both volcanic systems are underlain by large basaltic magma systems that heats the overlying crust and sustains a shallower rhyolitic magma chamber, which is responsible for large explosive eruptions of lava flow. At both Taupo and Yellowstone, the rhyolite magma reservoir is mostly solid. Based on seismic imaging, although the proportion of melt in Taupo is already at 20 to 30%, it's higher than at Yellowstone, which is only 5 to 15%. So Taupo has a lot more melt, 20 to 30% right there. Plus it's got a lot more bigger earthquakes taking place around it. And here we are. Okay, the 5.4 at 1:16 a.m. and 5.2, 1:19 a.m., 3 minutes later. So let's take this one, see what that 30 people reported feeling it, and these are the quake frequencies that we can see here. Obviously, it has affected the supervolcano. Okay, not only the 5.4, but also the 5.2. Let's go to the 5.2. Obviously, 9 people reported feeling that, and again, obviously, you have the shake map here. Okay. And that's the fault line right there. And it's on the ring of fire, obviously. And so 3 minutes later, you had another big shakeup of the supervolcano of Taupo. There we go. Okay. So the Kermadec Islands around there. We had the 7.1 around there. We had the 7.3 around there, which are huge. Obviously, this whole area probably rang like a bell. And here we go. God forbid if that thing erupts again. It's got 20 to 30% melt, as they told us, concerning USGS. Right here. Taupo is 20 to 30% melt, higher than Yellowstone, which is 5 to 15%. Now, the eruptions at first began from Taupo about 300,000 years ago, climacting with the Nui eruption 26,500 years ago. It's actually 25,500 years ago. That eruption, which caused collapse of the first surface, creating the caldera that's now largely filled by the Lake Taupo. Okay, so the caldera is Lake Taupo right there. Okay. Was even larger than the eruption that formed Yellowstone caldera. So that eruption was larger than the Yellowstone caldera, the last super eruption 361,000 years ago. After the Nui eruption, 28 additional small eruptions of ash and lava occurred, 25 of which took place in the past 12,000 years. The most recent eruption took place 1,800 years ago, prior to the arrival of humans in New Zealand, and was huge in its own right, comparable in size to the 1850 eruption of Tambora, Indonesia. The explosion was followed by a lava eruption beneath the lake. During this period of exceptional activity in Taupo, Yellowstone was taking a snooze. Its most recent eruption in Yellowstone was 70,000 years ago. So this is what's happening there. In addition to violent history, Taupo and Yellowstone share vigorous hydrothermal systems and have resulted in geysers and hot springs and even small steam explosions. Both volcanic regions also experience unrest in the form of earthquakes and ground deformation. At Yellowstone, there are typically 1,500 to 2,500 earthquakes a year, and ground rises and falls at rates of about 2 to 3 centimeters an inch per year. Much of the unrest attributed to groundwater accumulating, as we know. At Taupo, earthquake swarms are also common, and like at Yellowstone, are often caused by water moving around the subsurface near crystal faults. Ground deformation at Taupo can be more intense than at Yellowstone, with rates of more than 4 inches a year. While at Yellowstone it's difficult to relate any unrest to magma, some episodes of unrest at Taupo may be driven by magmatic activity. So you can see that Lake Taupo, here we have it, it has more melt, 20 to 30%, it's more than double of Yellowstone, and it's got more earthquakes. Okay? The ground deformation can be more intense than at Yellowstone, 4 inches a year. The 2019 unrest at Taupo, a good example. Volcanologists in New Zealand were able to locate over 7,000 small earthquakes that occurred part of the 7 discrete swarms, although the first 2 swarms had characteristics of tectonic seismicity. A particular note was a 5.3 earthquake that occurred September 2019. Okay, well, we had a 5.4 and 5.2 today. Okay? I don't know what's going to happen because we have other volcanoes there, not just we don't have just the supervolcano, we have other volcanoes at the White Island as well, which is somewhere around here. Let me see. White Island, where's White Island? Somewhere around there, anyway. Forgive me, I don't know too much about. That's the one that had a very explosive eruption. So that's the supervolcano, and there's other volcanoes around there as well. Auckland and Wellington. Where's Wellington? Somewhere down here. Okay. So let's pray that nothing worse happens. But this area obviously is, the 7 magnitude probably shook everything up. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's more magma building up there. And as Hookerbeat says, it's because of the planetary alignments. So I'll leave links below for you for this. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Finally, support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support, and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.